Clenney, who is 25 years old, had a serious argument with her boyfriend when he returned home in 2022. The situation escalated, and Clenney ended up calling 911 because her boyfriend became unresponsive. The police arrived, but it was too late. Later, prosecutors found a troubling phone call where Clenney threatened her boyfriend's life just before the 911 call. Additionally, her statements to the police didn't match the evidence found at the crime scene. Detectives believe there's more to the story than what Clenney has disclosed. Now let's delve into Clenney's background. Born in Midland, Texas in 1996, Clenney had dreams of becoming a model from a young age. She started pursuing this dream at the age of 12 or 13, around 2003. Her family later moved to Austin, Texas, where she continued her modeling and acting pursuits. However, her career seemed to stall for about a decade until 2015, when she faced legal trouble for public intoxication and drunk driving in California. Yet despite this setback, she managed to land a small role in a low-budget film. Clenney's life took a different direction when she discovered ONLYFANS, an online platform, around 2019 or 2020. While this isn't conventional modeling, it became a significant part of Clenney's life and career. This marked a turning point for her, opening up new opportunities and challenges. Clenney's introduction to OnlyFans coincided with a particularly challenging period in her life. Sadly, this seems to be a common trend within the industry. Many individuals turn to platforms like OnlyFans when they feel they have no other options available to them. From what I've gathered through online research and interviews with former models, it's clear that many of them come to regret their decisions later on. They realize that once content is uploaded to the internet, it's virtually impossible to erase it completely. Exiting this line of work isn't straightforward either, as the content remains accessible and may be shared across numerous websites without the creator's consent. Clenney, like many others, aspired to make a living through modeling. Initially, she found some success in traditional modeling during her younger years. However, she harbored grander ambitions and sought a more substantial income. When she discovered the potential to earn significant sums through a different avenue of modeling on OnlyFans, she seized the opportunity. This transition occurred around 2019 or 2020. At first, Clenney's following on OnlyFans was modest, but it rapidly grew as she continued to upload content and engage with her audience through live streams. Before she knew it, she had amassed a substantial fan base, and her earnings skyrocketed. Reports circulated that she earned upwards of $3 million in less than a week, although this figure couldn't be independently verified due to the private nature of her financial records. But nevertheless, considering the earnings of other models in the industry, this claim appears plausible. For Clenney, everything seemed to be falling into place. She was realizing her dreams of becoming a successful model and enjoying financial abundance beyond her wildest imagination. However, her newfound success was about to take an unexpected turn, leading to consequences she never could have anticipated. In the midst of the tumultuous year of 2020, Clenney crossed paths with a man named Obumseli. Despite Clenney's status as a social media sensation, the origins of their relationship remain shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that they encountered each other in Austin during the pandemic and later decided to embark on a new chapter together in Florida, settling into a luxurious apartment in Miami. Their lifestyle, enviable to many, became the subject of fascination for countless social media followers who eagerly consumed every aspect of their seemingly idyllic existence. Navigating this topic delicately is essential, as I'm aware that there's a significant audience who find allure in the glamour of celebrity lives, living vicariously through their digital personas. While this lifestyle may resonate with some, it's not everyone's preference. It appears that Clenney's connection with Christian lacked a deep emotional foundation, at least initially. While it's likely that their bond deepened over time, Clenney's motives for entering the relationship seem somewhat ambiguous. During an interview with We in Miami, a popular local podcast, Clenney shed light on her experiences with OnlyFans, disclosing the substantial income she generated from her online endeavors, often raking in six figures monthly. However, she also revealed a revealing aspect of her personality and romantic inclinations. When questioned about her dating preferences, Clenney hinted at a discernible pattern, acknowledging a predilection for affluent partners. Specifically, she noted a preference for wealthy black men. While I'll refrain from further commentary on this matter, I'll leave it to your discretion to interpret this statement, as it undoubtedly raises questions and invites speculation. It's evident that Courtney and Christian's relationship was fraught with difficulties and lacked the foundation of a healthy partnership. Courtney's candid remarks about her initial motives for dating Christian offer a glimpse into her mindset during that period. However, the situation escalated in 2021 when law enforcement intervened. In July of 2021, police responded to a distress call from Courtney and Christian's residence. According to police records, a violent altercation had erupted between the couple. While the instigator of the argument remains unclear, Courtney's behavior during the altercation was alarming. Reports indicate that she physically assaulted Christian, hurling objects, including sharp items like glass, in his direction. Christian, by contrast, appeared to refrain from retaliatory actions and instead sought to defuse the situation by contacting the authorities. Remarkably, he later dropped the charges against Courtney when they reconciled. Unfortunately, this incident was not isolated. Court documents and police records reveal a pattern of recurring conflicts between the couple, often instigated by Courtney. Reports from neighbors and security footage corroborate the tumultuous nature of their relationship, with frequent arguments, shouting matches, and instances of physical altercations. While both parties bear some responsibility for the tumult, Courtney's actions seem to have been more aggressive and volatile. In February 2022, security footage captured a disturbing incident in which Courtney physically assaulted Christian in an elevator. Despite Christian's efforts to maintain composure, Courtney continued to lash out, striking him repeatedly and attempting to pull his hair. Just a month later, the situation reached a tragic climax when Courtney's rage spiraled out of control, resulting in a devastating outcome. The Miami-Dade state attorney aptly summarized the situation, describing Courtney's behavior as aggressive, tempestuous, and combative. Tragically, the toxic dynamic between Christian and Courtney culminated in a violent incident that could have been prevented. The timeline of events surrounding the tragic incident was meticulously reconstructed by law enforcement officers in the days following the crime. Key fob records from the couple's apartment provided crucial insights into the moments leading up to a fateful argument that ended in irreparable consequences. On April 3, 2022, at approximately 1:15 p.m., Christian left the apartment building for a brief period. He returned at 4:32 p.m., bearing sandwiches from Subway. Meanwhile, Courtney was engaged in her social media activities, posting an Instagram video shortly before Christian's return. It appears that she concluded her online presence with a live Q&A session, shared as a reel on the same day. During this time, Courtney had 2 phone conversations with her mother, occurring at 4:43 p.m. and 4:56 p.m. respectively. Remarkably, her mother detected nothing amiss during these exchanges, aside from Courtney's vocal altercation with Christian, which had become a routine occurrence in their relationship. Tragically, sometime between these phone calls, a crime of grave consequence transpired within a 30-minute window. Witnesses reported a disturbance in Courtney's apartment, prompting building security to be called around 4:46 p.m. However, Courtney did not contact emergency services until 4:57 p.m., allegedly claiming she had acted in self-defense during the distressing 911 call. In the background, Christian's desperate plea for help foreshadowed the tragic outcome. When officers arrived at the scene, Courtney was promptly arrested. However, the evidence presented a stark contrast to her claims of self-defense. Investigators noted inconsistencies in Courtney's statements and confession, casting doubt on her credibility. Moreover, the coroner's report revealed a significant wound inflicted with apparent intent, contradicting Courtney's version of events. Prosecutors remained unconvinced by her narrative, and a chilling audio recording surfaced, further implicating Courtney in the tragic outcome, portraying her as both deceitful and culpable in the loss of life. Following a brief investigation, Courtney Clenney was arrested for homicide, with law enforcement uncovering a disturbing threat made by Courtney just weeks before Christian's tragic demise. In a chilling recording shared by WSVN, Courtney can be heard unleashing a profanity-laced tirade at Christian, expressing a desire to harm him. With mounting evidence against Courtney, investigators delved deeper into the history of assault within the relationship, dating back to 2020.
Additionally, several derogatory tweets posted by Christian during his high school years surfaced, suggesting a darker side to his character. As the investigation progressed, authorities began to consider that the reports of assault may have been mutual, with both Clenney and Christian victimizing each other. Nevertheless, the focus remained on the events leading up to Christian's death, where evidence against Clenney was compelling. While understanding the context of Clenney's anger and resentment is important, it does not excuse her actions. Despite potential provocation, Clenney must be held accountable for her crime. Her trial commenced in February 2023, but given the complexity of the case, a conclusion may not be reached anytime soon. Currently incarcerated and denied bail due to being deemed a flight risk, Clenney awaits justice behind bars. As the legal proceedings unfold, questions linger regarding the justification of Clenney's actions. Was she driven to violence by years of abuse, or is she simply a cold-blooded killer? The answer remains elusive, prompting speculation and debate among those following this tragic case closely. As always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Story. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, sharing your thoughts on Clenney's culpability in this heartbreaking saga. Until next time, this is Sunny signing off. Certainly, let's delve deeper into the intricacies of Clenney and Christian's relationship, the dynamics at play, and the broader societal implications of such cases. The relationship between Clenney and Christian is emblematic of the complex and often fraught dynamics that can exist behind closed doors. While on the surface, they may have projected an image of glamour and success, beneath the facade lay a turbulent and troubled partnership. The discovery of the threatening recording, in which Clenney expresses a chilling intent to harm Christian, sheds light on the darker undercurrents of their relationship. It raises questions about the power dynamics, control, and underlying tensions that may have simmered beneath the surface for some time. The revelation of derogatory tweets from Christian's past adds another layer of complexity to the narrative. It challenges the perception of him as a victim and complicates the portrayal of Clenney as the sole aggressor. It underscores the need for a nuanced understanding of interpersonal dynamics and the ways in which trauma and past experiences can shape behavior. As the legal proceedings unfold, the case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about domestic violence, gender dynamics, and societal expectations. It highlights the insidious nature of abuse and the challenges survivors face in seeking justice and recognition for their experiences. Moreover, it prompts a broader conversation about accountability and responsibility. While Clenney's actions cannot be excused, understanding the context in which they occurred is essential for a comprehensive understanding of the case. It requires us to reckon with the complexities of trauma, mental health, and the cyclical nature of violence. Ultimately, the case serves as a sobering reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked abuse and the urgent need for support systems, resources, and interventions to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future. As we await further developments in the trial, let us not forget the human lives at the center of this story and the profound impact it has had on all those involved. May it serve as a catalyst for reflection, dialogue, and action to address the root causes of domestic violence and create safer, more equitable communities for all. Certainly, let's explore the broader societal implications of Clenney and Christian's story, as well as the systemic issues that underpin cases of domestic violence. Clenney and Christian's relationship offers a stark reminder of the pervasive nature of domestic abuse and the complexities inherent in addressing it. Their narrative underscores the need for a multifaceted approach to tackling intimate partner violence, one that extends beyond individual culpability to encompass systemic factors such as gender norms, power dynamics, and access to resources. At its core, their story reflects the insidious nature of abuse, which often goes unrecognized or unreported due to fear, shame, or a lack of support. The fact that both Clenney and Christian were implicated in acts of violence highlights the cyclical nature of abuse and the ways in which trauma can perpetuate harmful behaviors within relationships. Moreover, the case raises questions about the adequacy of existing support systems for survivors of domestic violence. Did Clenney have access to the resources and assistance she needed to safely leave the relationship? Were there missed opportunities for intervention that could have prevented the tragic outcome?
Additionally, the role of social media in shaping perceptions of relationships and exacerbating power imbalances cannot be overlooked. The curated images of perfection often portrayed on platforms like Instagram can obscure the reality of abuse and prevent victims from seeking help due to fears of judgment or disbelief. As the trial progresses, it is essential to center the experiences of survivors and prioritize their safety and well-being above all else. This requires a coordinated effort from law enforcement, social services, and community organizations to provide comprehensive support to those affected by domestic violence. Ultimately, Clenney and Christian's story serves as a sobering reminder of the urgent need for societal change. It calls for greater awareness, education, and advocacy to challenge the attitudes and behaviors that perpetuate abuse and create a culture of accountability and respect within relationships. On this day, Mark Perez, the special agent in charge of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, announced significant findings in the disappearance of Mike Williams, a real estate appraiser from Tallahassee. Mike was initially believed to have drowned while duck hunting at Lake Seminole on December 16, 2000, with suspicions that he was eaten by alligators. Standing here today, I can share the truth about Mike Williams' fate. Perez revealed, Mike Williams did not drown in that lake. He wasn't eaten by alligators. He didn't abandon his wife and young daughter. He was brutally murdered. While specific details of the investigation remain confidential, Perez was pleased to inform that recent breakthroughs had been communicated to the Williams family earlier that morning. This story encompasses not just a narrative of love, betrayal, infidelity, and greed, but it also highlights the undying resilience of a mother. For over 17 years, Cheryl Williams, Mike's mother, firmly contested the initial conclusion that her son had drowned in Lake Seminole. Her relentless determination prompted authorities to re-examine the case. She held on to her belief in her son's survival against all odds, stating, "I had two options, believing he was alive or dead. I chose to believe he was alive, and I truly think that sustained me." Despite facing criticism and being labeled as delusional, Cheryl maintained, "If I had given up, we would never have uncovered the truth." On the eve of the press conference, a shocking twist was revealed. Brian Winchester, a close friend of Mike and his wife Denise, who later married Denise, was involved in the case. In the church youth group, Mike's journey from a humble upbringing to becoming a successful real estate appraiser is a testament to his dedication and the sacrifices made by his family. His story is a poignant reminder of a bright future cut tragically short. Let's continue unrevealing this complex tale. Brian Winchester was sentenced to 20 years in 2017, not for Mike's murder, but for the kidnapping of Denise Williams, his then wife. Brian's fear that Denise would expose their dark secret post-divorce led him to commit the kidnapping. Denise, on the other hand, played a pivotal role in ensuring Brian received a harsh penalty. Her persuasive testimony and insistence on a severe sentence played directly into Brian's decision to cooperate with authorities. In a twist of fate, while Denise celebrated what seemed like a victory, Brian made a deal with prosecutors. At 49 years old, he confessed to planning Mike's murder and concealing it for 17 years. In return for his full confession and leading investigators to Mike's body, Brian received immunity from prosecution for the murder. This revelation led to Denise Williams' arrest on May 8, 2018. This case, filled with layers of betrayal and deceit, is indeed complex. Now, let's dive deeper into the intricacies of this tragic story, beginning with Mike Williams' early life and the foundational years that shaped him into the man he was. Commission arrived. They launched a search operation but found no trace of Mike, not even his hunting equipment or personal belongings. It seemed as if he had vanished into thin air. This absence of clues only deepened the mystery around his disappearance. During the initial investigation, authorities speculated that Mike might have fallen overboard and drowned. The possibility of alligators attacking was considered, but was not widely accepted as alligator attacks in such scenarios were rare. This theory led nowhere, and the case eventually grew cold. Denise was left to raise their daughter alone, supported by her parents and Brian. Mike's insurance policies paid out in full, providing financial stability but also raising eyebrows.
It was Brian, after all, who had brokered these substantial policies. Years passed, and Cheryl Williams, Mike's mother, never accepted the theory that her son had accidentally drowned. She tirelessly campaigned for the case to be reopened, convinced that foul play was involved. Her persistence paid off when new evidence emerged, leading to a reinvestigation. The turning point came when Brian Winchester, facing legal troubles of his own from the kidnapping charges involving Denise, opted to cooperate with law enforcement. His confession revealed a plot between himself and Denise to murder Mike for the insurance money, a plan they had set into motion not long after ensuring Mike's life was heavily insured. Brian's testimony exposed the grim reality that Mike had been lured to Lake Seminole under the guise of a hunting trip where he met his untimely death. Denise's role in the conspiracy and subsequent trial painted a picture of a love and betrayal so profound that it led to murder. As we dissect this case further, we uncover not only the personal dynamics between Mike, Denise, and Brian, but also a broader commentary on greed, trust, and the extreme lengths to which people will go to secure their desires. The case when it was reopened. Austin emphasized the lack of any signs of a violent struggle at the lake, but noted that the evidence, or lack thereof, pointed to something more sinister than a simple drowning or alligator attack. This new phase of the investigation focused on gathering more concrete evidence and re-examining the testimonies and actions of those close to Mike around the time of his disappearance. The relentless determination of Cheryl Williams played a crucial role in shifting the narrative. Her refusal to accept the initial conclusions and her continuous efforts to uncover the truth kept the case alive in the minds of the public and the authorities. Cheryl's tireless advocacy led to a deeper probe into the circumstances surrounding her son's disappearance, ultimately revealing the dark undercurrents beneath what was initially perceived as a tragic accident. The reopened investigation delved into the relationships and financial dealings within Mike's circle, particularly focusing on the life insurance policies and the beneficiaries. The involvement of Denise and Brian Winchester became a focal point. As the layers of deceit unraveled, law enforcement began to piece together a plot driven by greed and betrayal, which led to Mike's tragic end. Cheryl's quest for justice was fraught with personal sacrifices and challenges. Despite the threats from Denise and the strain on familial relationships, Cheryl's commitment to finding the truth never wavered. Her actions not only brought renewed attention to the case, but also set the stage for the eventual legal repercussions for those involved. As the case unfolded, it became a poignant example of how the perseverance and conviction of a single individual can challenge and eventually change the trajectory of a legal investigation. Cheryl Williams' dedication ensured that her son's story was not forgotten and ultimately led to the uncovering of a truth that might have otherwise remained hidden beneath the murky waters of Lake Seminole. As suspicions about Denise Williams and Brian Winchester deepened, the investigation shifted towards a potential conspiracy. The circumstances surrounding Mike Williams' disappearance, his usually not hunting alone, his truck's unusual location, the unexpected direction of the boat, and the motor being full yet off, all raised red flags that suggested something more calculated than an accident. Police officer David Arnett's observations added to the growing doubts about the official version of events. The inconsistencies in the boat's location relative to the storm's effects and the fact that it hadn't drifted despite being full of fuel contradicted the theory that Mike had simply fallen out while operating it. The detail that his truck was parked far from the usual concrete launch, requiring a difficult trek through mud, suggested that the scene might have been staged. The initial focus of the search efforts solely on rescue and recovery, without consideration for foul play, meant crucial time was lost in gathering forensic evidence. By the time law enforcement entertained the possibility of wrongdoing, the scene had been compromised by the activities of volunteers and the removal of potential evidence like Mike's car. Further complicating the investigation was the fact that after Mike's disappearance, Brian Winchester divorced his wife Kathy and married Denise Williams. This not only changed the dynamic among the group of friends, but also cast a shadow over Denise and Brian's relationship, particularly in light of the significant financial benefit Denise received from Mike's life insurance policies. The nearly $2 million payout was an extraordinary sum that investigators could not overlook. These developments led to a more targeted probe into Denise and Brian's actions and motivations. Their past interactions, financial transactions, and personal relationships were scrutinized for any evidence of premeditated involvement in Mike's disappearance. The investigation expanded to include interviews with family members, friends, and associates, seeking any information that could link the couple to a deliberate act of foul play. This renewed investigative effort was essential not only to determine the truth behind Mike Williams's tragic end, but also to ensure justice was pursued, considering the mounting evidence pointing towards a conspiracy rather than a mere accident. Cheryl Williams's relentless pursuit for justice involved a combination of public appeals and private pressure on the authorities. Her tenacity was aimed at shifting the investigation from the hands of an agency she believed was making no substantial progress in uncovering the truth behind her son's disappearance. The personal campaign she waged was both a testament to a mother's love and a strategic move to bring fresh eyes to a case that seemed stalled. Her decision to reach out to the Discovery Channel resulted in a televised feature, which significantly raised the profile of Mike Williams's case. This exposure not only rekindled public interest, but also increased the pressure on law enforcement agencies to take more decisive action. The story on national television highlighted the discrepancies and the peculiar aspects of the case, drawing attention to the suspicious circumstances surrounding Mike's death and the subsequent handling by the authorities. Cheryl's daily letters to Governor Rick Scott served as a constant reminder of the unresolved case and her dissatisfaction with the current investigative efforts. By appealing directly to the governor, she hoped to either reassign the investigation or appoint a special prosecutor, thereby injecting new momentum into solving her son's mysterious disappearance. This advocacy eventually bore fruit. The renewed attention and the mounting public pressure led to significant developments in the case. New investigators were brought in, and with a fresh perspective, they began to uncover evidence that previous efforts had missed or underestimated. The persistence of Cheryl Williams exemplifies how the determination of a single individual can play a crucial role in reopening cold cases and pushing the justice system towards re-examination. Her efforts not only kept her son's memory alive, but also ensured that the pursuit of truth and justice remained active, ultimately contributing to a breakthrough in the case. Burglary. This dramatic turn of events provided law enforcement with the leverage they needed to delve deeper into the intertwined lives of Brian and Denise, especially concerning Mike Williams's disappearance years earlier. Brian's arrest shed new light on his volatile and potentially violent nature, casting further suspicion on his involvement in Mike's case. The kidnapping incident revealed a level of premeditation and desperation on Brian's part, characteristics that were crucial for investigators to consider as they revisited the details of Mike's disappearance. During the legal proceedings for the kidnapping charge, Brian faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. This reality pressured him to negotiate with prosecutors. In a bid for a lighter sentence, Brian offered information about Mike's disappearance, which until then had been a tightly guarded secret between him and Denise. Brian's confession was a pivotal moment in the investigation. He disclosed the exact role he and Denise had played in planning and executing Mike's murder, details that only someone directly involved could know. This confession led to Denise's arrest and subsequent trial, where she faced charges for her involvement in Mike's murder. The unrevealing of these events was a direct consequence of Cheryl Williams' unyielding determination to uncover the truth about her son's fate. Her persistent efforts to keep the case in the public eye and pressure law enforcement to take action were finally paying off. The breakthrough in the case after years of seeming inactivity illustrated the impact of continuous advocacy and the importance of holding on to hope, even when faced with overwhelming odds. The charges against Denise and Brian marked a significant turning point, bringing some measure of closure to Cheryl and her family. However, it also highlighted the profound complexities of legal and interpersonal dynamics in cases involving close personal relationships and significant financial motives. From drowning. This incident brought Mike even closer to Brian, unaware of the betrayal that was unfolding between his wife and his best friend.
The dynamic among the trio grew increasingly complicated, with Mike trusting Brian completely while Brian and Denise continued their clandestine relationship. As their affair deepened, Denise and Brian began to view Mike as an obstacle to their happiness, furled by their illicit emotions and Denise's desire to maintain her image and custody of her daughter. The duo plotted a sinister plan to remove Mike from the picture permanently. Brian's revelation about this plot was a chilling admission of how far he and Denise were willing to go to secure their future, together without Mike. Brian disclosed that the plan to kill Mike was meticulously crafted. It involved staging a hunting accident where Mike would appear to have drowned in Lake Seminole, a location they frequently visited for duck hunting. This would explain any potential absence and allow Denise to claim Mike's life insurance, which Brian had sold to him, thereby securing a substantial financial gain. Denise's insistence on maintaining her public persona as a devout and dedicated wife and mother made her particularly adamant about ensuring the plan's success without any suspicion falling on her. The death would look like a tragic accident, leaving her free to live with Brian without the scandal of a divorce. When the day of the planned accident arrived, everything was set in motion. However, the plan did not unfold as smoothly as Denise and Brian had hoped, leading to unexpected complications and the eventual unrevealing of their scheme years later. Brian's confession, induced by his legal predicaments and the promise of a reduced sentence, finally brought the truth to light. His detailed account provided law enforcement with the missing pieces of the puzzle, enabling them to piece together the events leading to Mike's death and the subsequent cover-up. Cheryl Williams, who had never given up hope, felt a mix of vindication and profound sorrow as the horrific truth about her son's fate was confirmed. Her relentless pursuit of justice had finally resulted in a breakthrough, ensuring that those responsible for Mike's disappearance and death were held accountable. This case highlights the devastating impact of betrayal and deceit, not just on the victims, but also on their families and communities. Brian's recount of the events during his confession revealed the sheer desperation and chaos that ensued on the day of Mike's supposed accident. The plan, initially intended to appear as a simple and tragic boating mishap, unraveled rapidly into a dire situation that Brian was unprepared to handle. His panic, coupled with the unexpected resilience of Mike, who managed to struggle against the odds, culminated in a moment of sheer horror when Brian resorted to using his shotgun in a fatal, spur-of-the-moment decision. The details of the confession painted a grim picture of betrayal and premeditated murder, masked under the guise of a hunting trip among friends. Brian's intention to create a scenario of an accidental drowning was meticulously planned, from insisting Mike wear his wading boots to ensure he would sink quickly to the selection of the location known for its dangerous, stump-filled waters. However, Mike's fight for survival threw Brian into a panic, leading to the tragic outcome. Upon realizing the gravity of what he had done, Brian's primary concern shifted to covering his tracks and maintaining his alibi. He rushed back home, driven by the fear of being discovered, hoping to find his ex-wife Kathy still asleep and unaware of his early morning activities. His decision to pretend to have overslept was a desperate attempt to detach himself from the crime scene and establish an alibi that could distance him from any suspicions regarding Mike's disappearance. This chilling confession provided law enforcement with the evidence needed to move forward with charges against both Brian and Denise. The case, which had lingered in uncertainty and despair for years, finally began to see the promise of justice being served, largely due to Cheryl Williams's unwavering pursuit of the truth. Cheryl's long-held suspicions about the nature of her son's disappearance, her relentless advocacy, and the eventual unraveling of the truth highlighted the complex layers of deceit that had shielded the crime for years. The confession not only marked a turning point in the investigation, but also served as a testament to the lengths individuals might go to protect their interests, even at the cost of an innocent life. This harrowing tale of betrayal, conspiracy, and murder ultimately led to a profound impact on all involved, particularly the family of Mike Williams. As Brian Winchester and Denise Williams faced their respective punishments, the complexity of their actions and the devastating consequences unfolded in the legal system and in the court of public opinion.
Cheryl Williams, whose unwavering determination brought critical attention to her son's case, saw the unfortunate side effect of estranging her granddaughter, Ansley. Despite Cheryl's efforts to uncover the truth and seek justice for her son, the family rift exemplifies the often painful aftermath of such traumatic events. Ansley's belief in her mother's innocence and her refusal to engage with the media or her family highlights the deep emotional scars left by the ordeal. The case also raises questions about the justice system's handling of such intricate and emotionally charged cases. Denise's appeal and the subsequent overturning of her murder conviction, yet upholding her sentence for conspiracy, underscores the challenges in proving direct involvement in crimes where circumstantial evidence plays a significant role. This story serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of deceit and greed, and the enduring pain inflicted on families caught in the wake of such tragedies. It also emphasizes the resilience of individuals like Cheryl Williams, who persist in their quest for truth against overwhelming odds, often at great personal cost. Jack's closing remarks encourage viewers to reflect on the complexities of human relationships and the profound effects that hidden truths can have on lives. It's a sober reminder of the realities that lurk behind the facade of normalcy, urging a deeper consideration of the moral and ethical dimensions of our actions and their impact on others. Why would a friend eliminate an entire family? Sometimes, people we consider friends and trust deeply can turn out to be the very ones who exploit our vulnerabilities. Typically, friends know everything about us. But occasionally, people who only pretend to be our friends might later betray or harm us. For most people, friendship brings meaning to life. Supporting and assisting a friend is paramount, but sometimes the intent to help can turn into a tragedy. The tragic loss of a young woman named Christy Shawn and her husband Joseph Codd in 2015 shocked the quiet provincial town of Lear, North Carolina. This incident was one of the most brutal crimes in the history of this small community. At the time of the tragedy, the couple was joyously anticipating the addition of a new family member. However, the most horrifying aspect was that their perpetrator was someone they knew well, trusted, and considered a friend. Furthermore, they were not his only victims. Christy Maria Shawn Codd was born on September 3, 1976 in Madrid, Spain, the only child of American military personnel. Her father was a U.S. Air Force soldier, and due to his duties, the family frequently moved from place to place. They did not stay long in Spain and lived in various European countries before returning to the United States. Christy began her schooling in New Orleans, Louisiana, but within a year, the family moved to Texas, then to Illinois. And after that, Shawn spent several years in Latin American countries. Such a nomadic lifestyle had its benefits. Christy spoke multiple languages from an early age and had the opportunity to experience the cultures and traditions of other countries. However, during her teenage years, she faced challenges in settling into new groups and making friends in new places. Just as she would start to settle in, it was time to pack up, move, and change schools and social circles. Yet, it was precisely because of these constant changes that she developed excellent communication skills. Christy easily found common ground with various people and was known as a sweet, sociable, and charming young woman. Additionally, from an early age, she actively participated in sports. Christy was always active, engaging in gymnastics and swimming, and even taking kickboxing classes for a while. After finishing school, her father retired from the military, and the family settled in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was there that Christy finally made lasting friendships and discovered a new passion: cooking. As a teenager, she loved experimenting in the kitchen, creating culinary masterpieces that earned her much praise and attention. Determined to further her skills, Christy completed culinary courses, and her parents anticipated she would become a professional chef. However, another talent emerged: acting. A beautiful and ambitious young woman, Christy decided to pursue acting, enrolling in an academy and moving to Los Angeles. She seized every opportunity, appearing in commercials, performing on theater stages, and taking on roles in high-profile Hollywood productions as an extra or stunt performer. Notably, she had a minor role in the Terminator franchise, performing risky stunts. In 2000, Christie graduated from the acting academy but had yet to land any significant roles despite her striking appearance and evident talent. She then decided to focus on her culinary skills and sports, turning these passions into a profitable business. Christie participated in several popular culinary TV shows, becoming a well-known and recognizable figure. She reached the finals of one season of the next Food Network Star, though she didn't win due to mixed reviews of her culinary experiments. Undeterred, Christie garnered considerable attention, amassing thousands of followers on social media who eagerly kept up with her life and creations. She promoted a healthy lifestyle, offering advice on nutrition and developing her own exercise routines to maintain good physical condition. About a year later, Christie founded her own catering company, providing banquet services for various events and retailing prepared culinary products. Her business stood out for its focus on proper and healthy eating, featuring her original recipes. Christie soon contemplated starting her own farm to grow healthy, environmentally friendly produce, aiming to expand her business even further. While growing her catering business, Christie also conducted online courses on proper nutrition and developed several other projects. In 2012, Christie met Joseph Timothy Codd, better known as JT, a casting director responsible for selecting participants and actors for various high-rated television projects. They first met at a studio in Los Angeles during the casting for a culinary show Christie wanted to participate in. They instantly clicked. Joseph, nearly 7 years older than Christie, and in the process of divorcing, was utterly charmed by her beauty and charisma. He began to court her, and soon they started a romantic relationship. Joseph supported Christie's ideas, and together they began working on their dream project of owning a farm. The couple decided to leave Los Angeles and move from sunny California to North Carolina. They sold Christie's successful catering business, and Joseph sold his house in Hollywood. They invested all the proceeds in buying a large piece of land in the town of Leicester. The couple acquired a spacious, cozy house and nearly 1 acre of land to realize their dream. Joseph continued to collaborate with TV channels remotely, while Christie actively developed her personal blog about proper nutrition and a healthy lifestyle. Their relationship was marked by love and harmony, making them an ideal couple. In August 2014, Christie and Joseph formalized their relationship with a lavish wedding attended by several hundred guests, including relatives, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and even some fans. They were truly happy and full of plans for their future. 3 months after the wedding, the newlyweds learned they were going to become parents for the first time. Their joy knew no bounds. After the new year, during a routine ultrasound examination, the doctor informed the couple they were expecting a daughter. A few days later, during a phone call with her mother, Christie mentioned they had decided to name their firstborn Skylar. Everything was going perfectly, and the pregnancy was progressing smoothly. However, their happiness was tragically short-lived. When Christie was 5 months pregnant and actively preparing for the arrival of their baby, a mysterious disappearance occurred, leaving their future uncertain. Christie regularly called her parents, who lived in another state, sharing updates on her well-being and chatting with her mother, sometimes for an hour at a time. However, on March 13, 2015, Christie's mother couldn't reach her daughter, but initially didn't think much of it. The situation repeated the next day, with calls going unanswered. When both Christie's and Joseph's phones were turned off by March 15th, Christie's mother became alarmed. Since Christie's and Joseph's parents lived in other states, they couldn't quickly check on the couple's home. Christie's mother called a close friend of her daughter's, a woman named Cecily who lived nearby, to check on them. When Cecily arrived at the Codd residence, she saw both of the couple's personal cars parked at the house. However, the front door was locked, and no one responded to knocks and shouts. The couple's phones had been off for 3 days, which was highly suspicious. Through a window, Cecily saw the couple's beloved dogs, who they cherished and would never willingly leave alone, locked inside one of the rooms. Cecily decided to walk around the house and noticed that the back door lock had been forcefully broken, indicating someone had attempted to enter or had indeed entered the home. She immediately informed Christie's mother, who then promptly called the police. The responding officers confirmed the back door had been broken into and discovered disarray inside, indicating someone had been searching for something.
According to the family, some valuables had been stolen, including a jewelry box and a breached safe in the couple's bedroom. However, there were no signs of blood, struggle, or evidence that the couple had been detained or taken by force. The perpetrator had acted cautiously, leaving no fingerprints or DNA traces. Despite the experienced officer's lack of optimism, the relatives clung to the faint hope that 45-year-old Joseph and his 38-year-old pregnant wife Christy were still alive. In the initial days, the investigation stalled. There were no clues or significant evidence to be found. The missing couple had no enemies or ill wishers, making it challenging to reconstruct what had happened. The couple's phones were left at home, last used on March 12th, with only incoming calls recorded the next day before the devices died. The police decided to question the couple's neighbors to see if they had noticed anything strange or suspicious recently. An interesting detail emerged when a neighbor living across the street saw another local resident throwing a large bundle into a trash bin near the Codd's home on the morning of March 15th. At the time, he didn't think much of it, but when he learned of the couple's disappearance, he thought the information might be useful to the investigation. Checking the contents of the bins was no longer possible as the trash had been taken to the dump the day before, meaning any potential evidence would need to be searched for there. But first, the police wanted to speak with the person who had discarded the strange bundle. The person turned out to be 36-year-old Robert Jason Owens, who lived on the same street and was well acquainted with the couple, even considered a close family friend. Robert was a handyman and had helped Christy and Joseph when they first moved into their new home. They became friends, and the couple later invited him to their wedding. At first glance, there was nothing suspicious about this, except that other locals described Owens as a strange and unpredictable person. On March 16th, Robert was summoned to the police station for questioning. Initially, he denied any involvement in the couple's disappearance and claimed ignorance about the bundle. There wasn't much to charge him with beyond the unsubstantiated claim of another neighbor. However, that evening, the situation dramatically changed when the very same large, strange bundle was found at the landfill. Inside were items from the missing couple's home, including Robert's clear fingerprints and DNA traces on partially burnt clothing belonging to the couple, a blanket, and a throw from their home, all stained with blood. This evidence confirmed police suspicions that Christy and Joseph were no longer alive. Doubts were dispelled when police searched the suspect's home and found charred human skeletal remains in his wood stove. Robert was then brought in as a suspect in the brutal elimination of his neighbor and the neighbor's pregnant wife. Despite his denials and inconsistent statements, he eventually confessed after several hours, and his admissions were truly shocking. He admitted to the double fatal incident but claimed it was accidental. On the evening of March 12th, Robert decided to visit his friend's home but swerved off the road to avoid hitting a dog, getting stuck in the mud. He walked to the Codd's home and asked for help to push his car out. The helpful couple agreed to assist, but while they were pushing the car, Robert, sitting at the wheel, accidentally confused the gas and brake pedals, striking and running over the couple. Terrified, he believed he would be accused of killing them, so he chose not to call the police or emergency services and decided to cover up the incident. Robert claimed he returned to the Codd's house, broke in through the back door, and took blankets from the bedroom to move the bodies, which he wasn't sure were deceased. He wrapped the bodies, placed them in the bed of his pickup truck, and drove them to his home. There, he dismembered them in his bathroom using a saw and a small axe. He then fired up his stove and began incrementally throwing pieces of their bodies into the fire, hoping they would burn completely. Robert packed the blood-soaked clothing, blankets, and footwear of the deceased into a trash bag and disposed of it in a dumpster, assuming that once the trash was taken to the landfill, no one would be able to find anything. He then staged a burglary, stealing money and valuables from the Codd's home, which he pawned the next day. The cruelty with which Robert disposed of his friends' bodies, and the eerie calmness with which he recounted the events shocked even seasoned police officers. In his home, they found a saw and an axe stained with blood, skin, and bone, fragments of the deceased. Robert hadn't even bothered to clean the tools or attempt to hide them, confident that the investigation would never lead to him since he had left no traces at the Codd's house. Forensic analysis confirmed that the bone fragments found in Owens' stove belonged to the missing couple. Law enforcement decided to delve deeper into the suspect's background. Robert was unmarried, had no children, and barely maintained any contact with his relatives. He had previously lived in Asheville, North Carolina, but in 2000 he bought land in Leicester and later built a house there. It turned out his name was linked to an unresolved crime from 15 years prior that occurred in Asheville. In 2000, Robert's close friend Zeb Wayne Quinn, who was only 18 at the time, mysteriously disappeared. Robert and Zeb had known each other since school, lived nearby, and were friends. Zeb was undergoing military training and also worked part-time at Walmart. On January 2, 2000, after finishing his shift, Quinn met with Robert, planning to drive to Leicester to buy a new car, but he never returned home. A few days later, his Mazda Protege was found in another part of town, parked with its headlights on. Inside, a heart was drawn on the window with red lipstick. The car's owner was never found. The car also had damage and scratches with traces of paint from another vehicle. The last person to see Zeb was Robert, whose car also had damage containing paint particles from Zeb's car. Robert told a peculiar and implausible story. Shortly after they headed towards Leicester, Zeb blinked at him to stop, saying he received a message on his pager and urgently needed to use a payphone. He asked Robert to wait and drove off to the nearest gas station, returning 10 minutes later looking frantic and saying their plans had changed before driving off in an unknown direction, hitting his friend's car in the process. It was also discovered that Zeb had a romantic relationship with a woman named Misty Taylor, whose former boyfriend Wesley Smith had threatened Zeb with harm if he didn't stop seeing Misty. Taylor, Smith, and Owens were questioned in this case, but due to a lack of evidence, all three were released. Additionally, Misty and Wesley had alibis, which was not the case for Robert. A significant amount of money Zeb had with him to buy the car, and his pager disappeared from his car, and it was never determined what message he had received, if any. The investigation leaned towards the theory that there was no message at all. Another oddity was that the day after Zeb's disappearance, a man called Walmart claiming to be him, stating he wouldn't be coming to work for the next few days due to illness. However, the colleague who answered the call thought the voice sounded strange and unfamiliar, not like Zeb at all. The phone call was traced to a Volvo plant where Robert worked. During questioning, Owens unexpectedly claimed that he made the call at his friend's request the night before Zeb sped away. No new evidence or witnesses were found, and the case remained unsolved, with Zeb Quinn listed as missing ever since. However, 15 years after these events, Owens was interrogated again, suspected of being directly involved in his longtime friend's disappearance. As the investigation into the Codd's disappearance unfolded, new and unexpected details about Robert's past and his involvement in old cases began to surface, shedding light on a potential pattern of behavior that linked him to multiple unresolved crimes. In June 2015, the case of Zeb Quinn was reopened and the investigation resumed. Initially, it seemed unlikely that law enforcement would uncover any new information. Robert recounted the same story he had told back in 2000, indicating he had nothing new to add. However, a more thorough search of his property revealed something very peculiar. In a detached concrete slab at Owens's home, a strangely walled-off cavity was discovered. Inside were small, heavily charred human bone fragments. Unfortunately, the remains were too damaged to undergo DNA analysis, making it impossible to definitively determine if they belonged to Zeb Quinn. A neighbor's interview provided even more unexpected results. An elderly man living nearby remembered something from January 2000, when young Owens had just purchased the land and was starting to build his house. One evening, Owens started a fire that emitted a sickly sweet, nauseating smell. The neighbor confronted him because the wind was blowing the stench in his direction, nearly making him sick. Soon after, the fire pit was covered with concrete, which seemed highly unusual, but Robert claimed he planned to build a small fountain there, which he never did. The neighbor had forgotten about the foul-smelling fire until 15 years later when police showed up at the property. Ultimately, Owens confessed to being complicit in a crime, telling an entirely new story. According to him, Zeb was killed by his own uncle, Walter Owens, who had been hired by Wesley Smith to eliminate Misty's new boyfriend, whom he still loved. Robert claimed he was unaware at the time, and his uncle had asked him to lure Zeb to a secluded spot.
When the three of them ended up in a wooded area on the road to Leicester, the uncle ordered them to stop the car and then signaled
Zeb to do the same. Once Zeb stepped out, Walter shot him and then instructed his nephew to help dismember and package the body, which was burned on Robert's property that same night and encased in concrete. Interrogating Walter Owens was no longer possible as he had died several years before his nephew's horrific confession. No evidence was found at the supposed crime scene, and the story sounded very unconvincing. Initially, Robert faced charges of first-degree double murder, murder of an unborn child, dismemberment and concealment of evidence, burglary, and robbery. These charges could have led to the death penalty, but it was revealed that the defendant had long suffered from depression and mental disorders, taking powerful medication, which his lawyer used as a foundation for defense. Thanks to a well-constructed defense strategy, the accused could have been found insane and sent to a psychiatric clinic instead of prison, which neither the prosecution nor the victim's relatives found satisfactory. At the same time, the investigation into Quinn's case began. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into another tragic case. An angry man stormed out of his house, slamming the door behind him. He paused in the driveway, running his hand through his disheveled black hair several times. The man was visibly nervous, muttering something under his breath. He then turned and walked briskly back towards the house. Tugging sharply on the doorknob, he stepped inside and grabbed a baseball bat lying at the entrance. He strode forcefully through the house, shouting violently. A young woman with blonde hair ran out, and as she approached him, he struck her on the head with the bat. She fell unconscious, a pool of blood quickly forming around her. The enraged man continued to strike the immobilized woman until his fury subsided. It's hard to imagine such a bloody tragedy occurring in a paradisaical place like New Zealand. Known for its picturesque nature, unique flora and fauna, and a high standard of living, New Zealand is often associated with a peaceful and crime-free existence. However, today's story will shatter the tranquil life of Auckland and challenge the notion of a happy family. Carmen and Brad met on what seemed like an ordinary day, which later turned out to be a fateful one. Carmen Thomas was born on October 30th, 1987 in South Africa. Her father passed away when she was just 10 years old, a loss that deeply affected her family. Seeking solace, they moved to relatives in Whitby, United Kingdom. However, peace eluded them there as well, prompting their return to South Africa after a while. By then, Carmen was over 18 and decided to stay with her relatives, eventually moving to London. In London, Carmen completed her studies and earned a master's degree in marketing. She had a strong, mischievous personality that drew people to her. Carmen was a loyal friend and comrade to many. However, the high cost of living in a large metropolis meant she had to work hard to maintain a decent standard of living. During the day, Carmen worked as a marketer in a store, and in her spare time, she took on a part-time job at a gentleman's club. Despite her unconventional choice of part-time work, Carmen adhered to strict personal rules, never allowing herself to engage in undignified behavior. This integrity was highly valued by her important clients. It was there that she met an attractive and flamboyant man named Brad Callahan. Bradford James Joseph Callahan was born in New Zealand in April 1978. His parents separated when he was 9 years old, and he moved to Australia with his mother. In 2001, Brad graduated from university with an engineering degree in the construction industry. Invited by a large construction company, he moved to the UK to take up the position of chief structural engineer for a major business complex. For important negotiations and added status, Brad turned to a gentleman's agency and chose the beautiful Carmen. Brad was intelligent, tall, with black hair and bright dark eyes. However, his ambition and busy career left him no time for a permanent relationship. After a successful business dinner, Brad was captivated by the open and radiant Carmen. Their informal communication continued, evolving into a strong friendship and eventually love. Their honeymoon period flew by and the lovers began living together, building a life based on trust and care. They sincerely supported each other and seemed absolutely happy. When Carmen became pregnant, Brad decided the best solution was to return to New Zealand, a country with clean air and a peaceful lifestyle. They moved to Auckland in March 2005, where Carmen and Brad welcomed their son, Jack.
Jack brought immense joy and happiness into their lives. From the beginning, Carmen and Brad prioritized Jack's safety and well-being, ensuring a happy childhood for him. However, with Jack's birth came serious disagreements in their relationship, primarily about child-rearing. Their relationship became turbulent and unstable, leading to their separation after 3 years. They retained joint custody of Jack. The breakup was difficult, but they tried to maintain a good relationship for Jack's sake. Seeking support and family, Carmen and Jack moved in with Colin, Carmen's half-brother, who also lived in Auckland. Gradually, Carmen regained her emotional balance and began a new life without Brad. In 2008, Carmen moved with her young son to a house on a neighboring street to Brad's so that Jack could be closer to his father. Having lost her father at an early age, Carmen sincerely wished for Jack to have a close relationship with his dad. They discovered a significant amount of blood, leading them to suspect foul play. The investigation intensified, and the police interviewed friends, family, and acquaintances to piece together the events leading up to Carmen's disappearance. Carmen had always wanted Jack to have his father around as much as possible. Despite their separation, many of Carmen's friends and family believed the couple still had a strong friendship. They spent time together mainly for Jack's sake, but their relationship had changed. Brad continued his career as a construction engineer, and in May 2009, he started a new relationship and even got engaged. Carmen focused on raising Jack and resumed working at the Gentlemen's Club, a decision that deeply upset Brad. He believed that the mother of his child should not be involved in such work. This disagreement became a major point of contention. The situation grew increasingly heated, with Carmen issuing ultimatums and Brad ignoring her requests. Despite their efforts to find happiness separately, tensions remained high. Brad's new marriage and impending fatherhood added new financial obligations, impacting the alimony he paid to Carmen for Jack's upkeep. The money issues became the final straw in a series of escalating conflicts. On March 19, 2010, neighbors called the police due to a domestic violence incident. Carmen had attacked Brad during an argument and received a warning from the police. Their relationship deteriorated further, with arguments continuing even at a distance. Disagreements about Jack's education led to numerous unsolvable problems and frequent scandals. On June 29, 2010, Brad visited Carmen's house to draft a new child support agreement and discuss Jack's schooling. Carmen was unhappy with the agreement and kicked Brad out, shouting that Jack was not his son. Brad left, but 2 weeks later, on July 13, 2010, he reported Carmen missing to the police. The police began their investigation, interviewing neighbors and reviewing video footage to reconstruct the timeline of events. They discovered that on June 29, a surveillance camera had recorded Carmen at a supermarket near her home. When they inspected her rented house, the absence of a garbage can outside raised suspicions. Inside, the discovery of a significant amount of blood pointed to foul play, prompting a more thorough investigation. As the search for Carmen continued, investigators uncovered crucial details from video footage, interviews, and evidence gathered from her home. These insights would help piece together the events leading to her disappearance and hopefully lead to finding Carmen. There were also traces of blood on the front door, the washing machine, near the sink, and in the shower. Forensic scientists used luminous, which reacts with the iron in blood hemoglobin, to detect these traces. Multiple patterns confirmed the presence of blood on the bathroom door and floor. The landlady told investigators that on June 29th, she heard loud screaming followed by prolonged crying and moaning. When she knocked on Carmen's door and got no answer, she looked out the window. She saw a street trash can and an overturned fabric horse, typically used for drying clothes. Startled, she called her husband. While waiting for him to arrive, she saw Brad walking out of Carmen's house carrying soiled clothes. Seeing the landlady, Brad rushed to explain that Carmen had become ill after a medical procedure and vomited blood. However, the landlady noticed Brad looked like he had just taken a shower. She had no reason to doubt his story and did not call the police. As the search continued, Carmen's cell phone activity caught the police's attention. Messages were regularly sent from her phone, but the communication style and tone were unlike Carmen's usual manner.
The outgoing messages and calls continued until July 10th. Investigators questioned where Carmen could be if she needed medical help and why she wasn't reachable. During further investigation, Carmen's car was found. In the back seat were luggage, clothes, and other belongings, with traces of blood found on some items. A note in the car indicated that Carmen owed money to the agency where she worked, and an envelope in the glove compartment contained $270 and had the name Misty on it. Police Inspector Mark Minefield first raised the possibility of murder after finding traces of blood in Carmen's car. The police searched the countryside southeast of downtown Auckland for Carmen's body after a report that her car was spotted around the time she went missing, but the search was inconclusive. When investigators examined Carmen's and Brad's phones, they found both phones had been nearby the entire time, and Carmen's phone was not found connected to a cell tower in Hamilton. One crucial piece of evidence was the missing trash can. It remained to be seen if it was the same bin a neighbor saw through her window on the day Carmen disappeared. The police did not dismiss the worst possible outcome and rechecked Brad's cell phone and spending by examining his bank card details. They traced his shopping list to June 30th, when Brad purchased a meat cleaver, a large plastic container, and several garbage bags. By scrutinizing Brad's daily routine, police identified some unusual events. Brad arrived at the construction site very early one day and walked around the property alone for a long time. This behavior, though strange, was not alarming enough for workers to report it. Based on the evidence gathered, including Carmen's cell phone and Brad's questionable purchases, the police shifted their focus from Brad being a victim to a suspect. They believed Brad Callahan killed his former lover by hitting her several times in the head and carefully hiding the body. On September 21st, Brad Callahan was arrested. Ridge in West Auckland. The gruesome discovery confirmed the worst fears of the investigators and brought a sense of closure to the community that had been searching for Carmen. Brad Callahan was arrested on charges of murdering Carmen Thomas and attempting to obstruct justice. He pleaded not guilty and was scheduled to stand trial. In a twist of fate, Brad's second son from his new partner was born while he was in custody, stirring a wave of emotion and resentment in him. 9 days after his arrest, the weight of his guilt and the overwhelming circumstances caused Brad to break down. He led investigators to Carmen's burial site, revealing the grim details of his actions. Under intense questioning, Brad detailed the chain of events from that fateful day. After a heated argument in which Carmen shouted that Jack was not his son, Brad left the house only to return 5 minutes later. In a fit of rage, he struck Carmen in the head with a baseball bat, rendering her unconscious as blood pooled around her. Overcome with anger and a sense of betrayal, he continued to hit her, sealing her fate. Realizing the enormity of his actions, Brad methodically cleaned the crime scene. He showered and quietly left Carmen's house. In the following days, he devised a plan to dispose of her body and cover up his crime. Brad enlisted a friend's help, asking him to purchase garbage bags, kerosene, and cleaning products. He meticulously cleaned the apartment, wiped up blood spatters, and wrapped Carmen's body in a bag, taking it out in a trash can. In the days that followed, Brad dismembered Carmen's body into 8 pieces for easier disposal. He severed her legs at the hip joints, cut each leg through the knee into 2 pieces, and severed her arms and head from her torso. On July 3rd, Brad met a friend at a boat ramp in Okahu Bay near downtown Auckland. He confessed to killing Carmen during an argument and sought help disposing of her body. However, his friend refused to provide a boat, thwarting Brad's plan to dump the remains into the sea. Desperate, Brad buried the containers in a shallow grave in Ware Ridge, West Auckland. On July 7th, he drove Carmen's car to Hamilton, abandoning it in a hotel parking lot. He placed a suitcase of her clothes and other personal belongings in the car to create the impression that Carmen had planned to leave. However, in his haste, he overlooked the bloody clothes inside the suitcase. To further his deception, Brad began sending text messages from Carmen's phone, pretending she was still alive. He messaged her friends, claiming she was unwell and had been in poor condition for days. Despite his efforts, Brad's perfect plan unraveled. On October 1st, police followed Brad's directions to the burial site and discovered Carmen's remains in plastic containers. Carefully removed from the makeshift grave, the evidence was irrefutable.
Brad Callahan's actions had finally caught up with him, and the case against him was solidified. He now faced the consequences of his horrific crime, and justice for Carmen Thomas was within reach. The autopsy determined that Carmen Thomas died from multiple blows to the head, with the fatal blow causing a compressed skull fracture. After multiple forensic examinations, Carmen's body was released to her family for burial. On October 13th, a private funeral was held at Green Lane Christian Center for Carmen Thomas, her young mother, cheerful, kind, and successful. Little Jack, who had waited and hoped to see and hug his mum, could only hug and kiss her white casket. On February 8, 2011, the first court hearing for Carmen Thomas's case took place. Judge Wenning found the crime committed was unintentional, taking into account Brad's explanation that he acted on impulse. He acknowledged that Brad's actions were done in a fit of rage, but was less lenient about the cover-up. On May 26, 2011, Brad Callahan was newly charged with attempting to obstruct justice. A summary of the police case showed that at 8:45 a.m. on July 29, 2010, Callahan struck Carmen Thomas several times in the head, resulting in her death. He then texted a friend to bring 3 garbage bags and a bottle of kerosene. During the ensuing period, Callahan dismembered Carmen's body into 8 pieces to prepare it for disposal. On November 25, 2011, a retrial was held. Police officers who had been working on the case filled the High Court in Auckland when Bradford Callahan unexpectedly entered 2 guilty pleas. Brad Callahan, who had previously denied guilt, suddenly admitted to murder and attempting to obstruct justice. The judge said it was one of the most serious cases of attempting to pervert the course of justice, calling Brad's actions just about the most serious case of attempted perversion of justice there can be. The judge also noted that the murder of Carmen Thomas was brutal, though not brutal enough to warrant the harshest sentencing laws. The 33-year-old man was sentenced in Auckland High Court, where a large public gallery was filled with Thomas's friends and family, including her parents who were visiting from South Africa. Judge Wenning sentenced Brad Callahan to life imprisonment for murder and 6 years in prison for attempting to pervert the course of justice. The sentences were to be served concurrently. The judge also said that the minimum sentence for the perverting the course of justice charge was insufficient to bring Brad Callahan to justice. Mr. Callahan passed judgment on himself by his actions that day, and it had a devastating effect on 2 families, said Detective Inspector Mark Benefield. Callahan's supporters left court without comment. In a statement, the Thomas family said, "Nothing can bring our Carmen back, and we are still angry because of it. But we are grateful that Brad will be away for an extended period of time so he can reflect on the enormous damage he caused to our son in the first place." Carmen Thomas's mother, Teresa Scott, told the court in a victim impact statement that she felt completely destroyed by what happened to her daughter. After the verdict was announced, the officer in charge of the investigation, Detective Inspector Mark Benefield, told the court that the justice done was the result of hundreds of hours of police work over the past 10 weeks since Carmen Thomas was reported missing on July 13, 2010. Detective Benefield explained that early in the missing person investigation, they determined that Carmen was most likely murdered. The work of gathering evidence and researching information required significant time and effort and had to be conducted following proper legal procedures. He reported that, over the last few weeks, close cooperation with the defendant's employer had not been finalized. Attempts to further investigate part of the Victoria Street construction site would continue to find any evidence that might assist the investigation. Until today, we have been unable to comment on media reports about our activities at the facility because we have been very sensitive to the issues of litigation and preemptive contempt of court, said Mark Benefield. He did not rule out the possibility of further arrests and charges in connection with Carmen's death in the near future. Brad Callahan had the courage to take responsibility for his actions in this tragic saga and pleaded guilty to 2 charges, but that in no way changes what he did. For the hearts of Carmen's loved ones, their world is shattered, living each new day without Carmen. Each of her close family members feels completely destroyed. "We will never forgive him for what he did to our family," said Carmen Thomas's mother, Teresa Scott. "I could forgive someone for taking a life under certain circumstances, but I can never forgive this man for being able to dismember a body and hide it in containers,"
added her stepfather, Wayne. Callahan's attorney, Stuart Grieve, said his client acted responsibly and does not intend to file a motion. Can a sentence with parole eligibility after 13 years and 8 months be called a ridiculous miscarriage of justice? In a country like New Zealand, which records only about 50 murders a year, any crime that deviates from the norm is extensively covered by the national media, as are the court cases for those crimes. It's possible that there was an overbearing bias against the victim at trial because of her line of work. However, even if Carmen was antagonistic and angered Brad, we do not blame the victim for having her life taken from her. If Brad had wanted sole custody of his son, he likely could have used the prejudice against Carmen's work to his advantage, as he had the opportunity. Instead, he beat her to death and tried to cover it up. In this situation, we are not diagnosing, we are only speculating. Summarizing this gruesome story repeatedly brings up the same question. It is understandable that in a fit of rage and uncontrollable anger, a person can commit irreparable acts. But what feelings can a healthy person have when they come up with a plan to dismember a once tenderly loved person? Little Jack Callahan is currently living in another town under an assumed name in the temporary care of his grandmother. He doesn't know that his daddy took his mum's life and must never find out because it wasn't his fault.